While runners can be on their marks only at the starting line, one of our greatest photographers is on her mark just about anywhere. Martha Teichner focuses on her remarkable career.
Mary Ellen Mark is in constant demand to shoot glamour pics of celebrities. But she is ambivalent about them. She is proud of these pictures of a homeless family in California. In fact, Mary Ellen Mark got famous for taking pictures all over the world of people she calls the unfamous.
I do prefer photographing people that aren't famous because I feel I can get closer to them. And I can make photographs that are more intimate.
Oh, Oaxaca, aquí tus tradiciones, donde se escucha tus pal y tus canciones. Oaxaca, Oaxaca, Oaxaca.
Every year, Mary Ellen Mark teaches photography in Oaxaca, Mexico. In the hilly slums around the city,
Thank you.
the unfamous open their lives to her.
Good for you.
No, cut it in half.
On this particular day, she has been invited to a birthday party along with several of her students.
When the kids came running down with their umbrellas, I thought that was mainly a picture just to give the family. I thought I want to take a really sweet picture of these kids and have another picture to give the family.
But these are not your average snapshots. Mary Ellen Mark takes edgy pictures. Pictures of people on the edge of society.
I look for something always that catches me, that's either ironic, or it's funny, or it's sad, or a twist.
Mary Ellen Mark says she no longer recognizes the high school head cheerleader she was in 1957.
I probably wouldn't like myself now if I met myself as a teenager.
But the young woman who became obsessed with photography the day she first tried it is dear to her heart still.
This is probably the earliest photograph in the show. It was taken in 1966 when I had a Fulbright in Turkey. It's just a pretty moment. But it's nice to have it in the show because it is so different and it's so young and naive.
Different indeed.
I thought they looked alike. I thought it was a very strange image of three women who looked so similar.
Mark considers herself a collector of strange images.
I love the circus. I photographed the circus for many years. It's a world that fascinates me. It's a beautiful world, and it's a world that exists in so many cultures.
In many of your photographs, there are juxtapositions where animals take on the roles of humans.
I guess it's something that I see in animals and that interests me and that I look for in animals, that sort of anthropomorphic quality. With these dogs, they were a bit like humans, but they tried so hard. They kind of broke my heart because it was so important to them to be perfect. I'm always looking for emotional pictures, too. I'm looking for pictures that have a sense of emotion, that touch you. Great. Isn't it lovely? And it has humor to it. And it's great. This guy was obviously nuts.
During her photography workshops in Oaxaca, Mark encourages her students to look for pictures that touch them.
Okay, a vote. Okay. How many vote for combing of the hair? I try to have them find stories or situations. And I don't want to give them an assignment, because one of the most difficult things about photography is to find your own projects, to find what you want to do. Yeah, that's a hard thing.
She pushes her students to take the risk, dare to move in and really say something about the people and places they photograph, the way she does.
I mean, photography is an intrusive act. I personally feel that it's worth taking the pictures. It's worth it.
You can't give people dreams and then walk away.
But I don't think by making photographs you're giving people dreams. Right. I think I don't think you're making promises.
But occasionally you are establishing long-term relationships. In 1983, Life magazine sent Mary Ellen Mark to Seattle to photograph street kids. She met 12-year-old prostitute Erin Blackwell, nicknamed Tiny. She only appears once in the Life spread, but emerges as an important character in an Academy Award-nominated documentary called Streetwise, produced the following year by Mark and her husband, filmmaker Martin Bell.
I think it is very strange that older men like little girls, because they're perverts is what they is. I mean, I like the money, but I don't like them.
Tiny has remained in touch. Over the years, Mark has photographed her again and again.
Is it that you feel a specific responsibility, or is it something else?
You know, it's not a sense of responsibility. I wish I could say that, and then I'd be like saintly or something like that. It's because it's interesting. It's fascinating. So in a way, it's selfish because it's fascinating. I'm trying to make enough money so I can actually go and do my own work. So I've been working like a dog.
What she means is work like the work included in an exhibition called American Odyssey, making its way around the world. It's in Sweden now. It will be in New York City this spring. Mary Ellen Mark took almost all of these photographs on assignment for magazines like Life or Look, now out of business. Today, if she wants them published, it has to be in a book, not a magazine.
More and more now, I mean, what's happened with magazines is that they don't want to publish the pictures of the unfamous. They don't.
So she takes celebrity portraits, because that's what magazines hire her to do. But she regards them with very mixed feelings.
People that are famous, they're very protective of who they are. And I mean, I understand why, because they have an image that they have to control.
She does like some of them, this one of director Federico Fellini. It was one of her first, a captured moment, just as this one of Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy was.
I try and make it like what I think could approach a great portrait. But, you know, to crack a veneer, it takes time. You usually don't have time.
She had 20 minutes with Hillary Clinton.
I've met some really interesting and very talented people. It's a different kind of work. It's not necessarily the work that I feel survives.
At 60, Mary Ellen Mark is convinced that if photography can grant immortality, hers will bestow it on the unfamous.
Adios! That's why I became a photographer, to make very intimate pictures and to make images that aren't like everybody else's images and that really allow you to see a world. To see a world in the most personal way. That's what interests me. That's my passion.
Now, Henri-Cartier Bresson, photographer. We don't seem to have a picture of him around here. Doesn't matter. What matters are pictures by him, and we do have some of those. They are from an exhibition of his photographs, which has just closed in New York and is opening at the Art Institute of Chicago next month. After that, it will travel to a dozen other American cities. Cartier-Bresson has been taking pictures for 50 years. They are not composed pictures, they are grasped from life. He is the photographer of the instant, the glance, the shock, the surprise.
I've been taking pictures when I was very young, I think. I don't remember what age. I started by painting and drawing, and for me, photography was a mean of drawing, and that's all. Life is very fluid. Well, sometimes the pictures disappeared, and there's nothing you can do. You can't tell the person, oh, please smile again, do that gesture again. Life is once, forever. I'm not interested in documenting. Documenting is extremely dull, and journalism, I'm a very bad reporter and a photojournalist. If I go to a place, it's try and have a picture which concretizes a situation, which in one glance has everything, and which has the strong relations of shapes, which for me is essential. For me, it's a visual pleasure. It's a recognition of an order, which is in front of you. I know some photographs, it's like a Chekhov story or a Maupassant story. It's a quick thing, and there's a whole world in it. The most difficult thing for me, it's a portrait. It's very difficult. It's a question mark you put on somebody, trying to say, who is it? What does it amount to? What's the significance of that face? I like to take people in the, how do you call that, environment. The animal in his habitat, in his habitat, yes. And it's fascinating coming in like this in people's home, looking at them. But you have to be like a cat, not disturbed. The attitudes of people are so different in front of a camera. Some embarrassed, some are ashamed, some hate to be photographed, and others are showing off. And you feel people very quickly. You see people naked, prove you find it. You see them stripped naked, and it's sometimes very embarrassing. Depends how people have been living, and all this is written on their face. After a certain age, you got the face you deserve, I think. In photography, you got to be quick. Like an animal on a prey. Like this, you grasp it and take it, and people don't notice that you've taken it. It's a question of awareness. It's seldom you make a great picture. You have to milk the cow quite a lot and get plenty of milk to make a little cheese. Life changes every minute. The world is being created every minute, and the world is falling to pieces every minute. And it is a very beautiful thing. What is tragic in life? I think everything is interesting if you scratch it. It's a way of shouting the way you feel. I love life, I love human beings. I hate people also. You see, the camera, it can be a machine gun. It can be a warm kiss. It's like the last 3 words of Ulysses of Joyce, which is one of the tremendous works which have ever been written. It's yes, yes, yes. And photography, it's like that. It's yes, yes, yes.
He is a painter who works from photographs of his subjects, photographs he's made himself. His name is Chuck Close, as in up close. He paints billboard-sized pictures of the human face, including his own.
I wanted to make a big, aggressive, confrontational kind of image, something that would knock your socks off. that you're not liable to walk by it and not notice it.
That's Chuck Close today, a little mellowed since that earlier self-portrait caught his cool pose. A retrospective exhibition of his work toured the Midwest recently and came to the Whitney Museum in New York last week. We saw it in St. Louis and later visited Chuck Close in his studio in Greenwich Village. Portrait of the Artist.
She said she doesn't want to know how much we hated it or how much we liked it.
Thank you very much.
Could I photograph you next to one of your works?
Yeah. I mean, I work primarily for myself, and I have never let the issues of the marketplace or whatever dictate the nature of the work, but still they are pieces of communication, and luckily there's no Art World Nielsen poll.
Would you like a can from back here to light the bottom part, the red?
Glare in her hair is it's the most difficult of all to light. I had a lot of trouble in that hair. If they don't make sense as paintings, then I'm in big trouble. I want them to hang with other paintings and be stacked up against other paintings, assessed as paintings. And obviously, I wouldn't stand there for upwards of a year or more to make a painting if I thought it was the same as the photograph that I started to work from. The nice thing from working from photographs, as opposed to working from a live model, is that isn't going to change, and I can refer back to the source and reassess all the decisions that I made. I am constantly aware that I am not making a head and not making a photograph, but making a painting. And the word art is inartificial. I think the fact that all great art has transcended the physicality of its means. That is what it actually is. It is colored dirt suspended on a flat surface on some cloth wrapped around some wooden stretchers. So all artists are probably more involved with the artificiality than most viewers. Something's really screwed up here. I was making a painting, and the person that I was painting happened to have glasses, and I worked from the top down, and I had long since completed that area of the portrait where the glasses were located. And I was looking at the painting, and I said, gee, the highlight on the eyeball is too bright. I really need to kill that a little bit. And as I approached the painting, I said to myself, gee, now I've got to take his glasses off to do it. And then as I stood there, I realized that I had been, sucked into my own illusion. I believed that those glasses were physically in front of the eyeball. I knew right then that I was in serious trouble. When you get to the point where you can't separate the reality from the artificiality, then you need to take a break. These are people that matter a great deal to me. I don't do anonymous images, and I don't paint commission portraits. These were people that I didn't know or care about. I don't think I would be able to hang in there for the same kind of long-term commitment. People who know me really well can't understand how such a sloppy, nervous, lazy person could make paintings that take 14 months to make and that seem to be so, with so much minutia and detail. And the way I make the color paintings with like 3 superimposed layers, 3 one-color paintings superimposed on top of each other is such a crazy way to make a painting. The experience for any viewer is at least partially I hope, the enjoyment of getting to know the peculiarities and the particularities of a particular face. These paintings are very difficult to live with. I wouldn't want to have one of them in my house. They're very aggressive, very difficult kinds of images to live with, and I'm interested in that, in making them something you have to have an opinion about and have to look at.
Chuck Close has been painting portraits since the 60s, painting only the persons he cares most about, his wife, his family, his friends, and he's been very successful.
If someone had said to me, 25 years ago that I would still be painting heads, I would have said, oh no, no chance. I try to present the image in a straightforward, flat-footed way, no editorial comment. I don't have people laughing, I don't have people crying. And, yet I feel that the face is a roadmap of a person's life.
This image is Chuck Close, and so is this one, and this one, and this one. The faces say a lot about Chuck Close, but this latest face does not reveal that for just under 3 years, Close has been paralyzed. Paralyzed following the collapse of his spinal artery, cutting off the blood supply in the spinal column. What this portrait does reveal is a study in determination, perseverance, and downright courage.
First thing that I thought of when I was paralyzed was now how the hell am I going to get back to work? I didn't want to be a poster boy for quadriplegia, and I certainly don't want to be seen as a handicapped artist.
Close believed that occupational therapy was just that, therapy to get you back to your occupation. The first portrait Close tackled was that of artist Alex Katz.
Painting in that depressing little room in the basement of this rehab hospital, I made extremely bright painting of brighter colors and sort of crazier palette than what I'd been doing. But that the painting itself ended up looking profoundly sad. The cathartic experience for me was to get some of that loss and sadness out in the work itself.
A very disciplined Chuck Close paints 5 days a week.
It was a good thing I was a painter because I didn't have to prove to anybody else that I could get back to work. I only had to prove it to myself.
You want to set for an hour?
Yeah, well, 45 minutes. I'm trying to walk every 45 minutes now.
A physical therapist calls it a miracle, calls it therapy.
You okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is the work harder, both physically and mentally?
Well, it's frustrating. It's harder. One of the things about being an artist, one of the reasons why I think I wanted to be an artist was to be in a room alone by myself. And now I have to have more assistants and other people around. I need things moved. So I sort of miss my privacy. But I actually do all the painting myself. What I'm doing now is really kind of equivalent of fine tuning and going back through again. It's like pulling in a station that's out of, slightly off, get rid of the static and clear up the image a little.
At the beginning of this year, Chuck Close, the painter, got a chance to play museum curator. New York's Museum of Modern Art gave him a bare room to play with. The result was head-on, the modern portrait as seen by Chuck Close.
I spent, I think, 24 8-hour days going through the collection. I didn't want to do the kind of connoisseur's show of 16 most beautiful portraits in the Museum of Modern Art. I knew I wasn't going to learn anything from that, and that the thing that was going to be interesting was putting things, you know, putting things together that I hadn't seen together before.
The show was a hit, but then it was back to painting and the original challenge. How would the work after the injury compare with the old portraits?
I had to prove to myself that I could still do what I used to do. And then when I proved to myself that I could, then I went on and pursued the direction I think I would have gone in anyway. It's still reading flat, so I think if we varnish it a little bit, it might not look that dark.
When he's not painting, you might find him at the printmaker's, his fingers full of ink, working the surface of the paper. It is the only time we saw the perfectionist Close exhibit any kind of frustration over his physical limitations.
Not sure I'm going to be able to lean in that far either.
Well,
no, I'm not going to be able to.
You're going to be able to make it?
What if we... Was there ever a time when you were just downright scared?
I was scared to death. Yeah, scared to death.
Were you more scared of living or dying?
Oh, I think I always thought I was going to make it. I was scared of living trapped in a body that didn't work. That's pretty scary. Are you?
None of his achievements, his paintings, his determination to live every minute, surprise those who know this man.
Well, this is what I did on my summer vacation.
The evidence is apparent on the walls of the Pace Gallery in New York. 12 portraits, all painted since the injury. Artist Eric Fischel on the wall and in person.
He's making some of the best paintings he's ever made. I think they're just so full of life and, you know.
And that's artist Alex Katz.
Oh, they look terrific, yeah. The gallery never looked this good.
Artist April Gornick.
Oh, it's great. I know it's a great painting. It's an absolutely great painting. I'm thrilled I could contribute.
One of the things that I'm happy about in this exhibition is that I find it celebratory rather than sentimental or maudlin or anything like that. So many people, you know, who care about me and who've been pulling for me are celebrating along with me, and it really feels great.
They don't get many celebrities in Eastport, Maine. So when 4 leggy supermodels landed in a chartered plane on a shoot to benefit the Nature Conservancy, tongues and tails were wagging. William Wegman's Weimaraners, Batty and Chippy, Chundo and Crookie. They may be the most photographed dogs in the world.
Well, they grew up with a camera. They were, the minute their eyes opened at 15 days, they saw me with a camera. But I had been taking their picture for 2 weeks when their eyes were closed, too, so then they know the click sound. Batty pretty much just lets me put her someplace, and then she has her own thoughts, which is why I love using her in those daydreaming type roles.
Wegman uses his dogs like a sculptor uses clay or a painter uses paint.
As a friend of mine said, they are my art supplies in a way. You know, working with them makes me fall in love with them more than just playing with them. Definitely in her genes to tune out to the situation. I'm always looking for places to put them and light to bounce off them and things for them to do.
And he's also always looking for things they can wear.
Like this was worn in the Cinderella story by one of the ugly stepsisters, so that gave an excuse to get really ugly ball gowns.
Yeah. Everything comes from flea markets.
So I just need the tennis racket.
Very nice.
And what else do I need? Some kind of a cap, I suppose.
And she just sits there and lets you do that.
Apparently. Hey, Daddy, you're such a good girl. You're my baby.
Wegman's fascination with dogs took him a little by surprise.
What's going on?
In the 60s, fresh out of art school, he was experimenting with what was then a revolutionary medium, video. Like most artists, he wanted fame, but didn't expect it.
In the 60s, I didn't think I'd be getting it through a dog.
But everything changed for him the day he got Man Ray.
From the second I got that dog and brought him home, he beamed into my consciousness and became a part of my work. I loved him right away, but my students told me to get rid of him. They said, this dog is driving you crazy, he's ruining your life. Because when I wasn't using him, he would make this high-pitched whining sound.
B-E-E-C-H, which is like well, there's a gum called beech nut gum.
Wegman's solution? Ignore the students and focus on Man Ray. He was bullied into the biggest decision of his career by a whining dog.
B-A-C-H. See, that's the difference. Well, okay, I forgive you. But remember it next time. Okay.
After Man Ray came Fay Ray. Anyone with kids knew Fay, who became a star on Sesame Street.
We have 4 balls. Take away 1 equals 3 balls. Take away 1 more, and we have 2 balls. 2 balls left.
She had this great awareness. She knew that she was being photographed, and there was this moment, and a big light goes off after you go click, and then you go, good dog, Fay.
After Fay Ray died, her descendants carried on the traditions of William Wegman's Weimaraner Republic.
The boys drifted into Hidden Cove and went ashore. The Hardley boys.
Along the way, Wegman and his wife Christine created 2 descendants of their own, Atlas and Lola. They also pose for Wegman, but not as willingly as the dogs. The dogs recently became models for Wegman's new series of fashion photographs.
You know, when my little daughter, 2-year-old daughter whines, my wife goes nuts. When my dog Chip whines, I go nuts. So I'm hardwired into this Weimaraner brain.
The collection's on display at the McKinney Avenue Contemporary Museum in Dallas.
I can see that these dogs are sort of, this is fun for them. So it's fun to look at them doing this, you know? It tickles me. I love it.
Wegman's come a long way from his days as an artist struggling with more traditional subjects. He was classically trained. He paints and wants to paint more.
Do you want to be known as a painter?
I do and I don't. And I think that's the kind of unknown part of my work, that everyone needs a little secret, you know, and something that you can explore. Yeah, nice T-shirt.
This is Lolita. I heard this was Lolita.
Yeah, that's Batty at a young age.
And some critics have said the dog thing
She's 10
is a
years
little
old here.
tired.
She's about 6 months old there. So starts out as this dangerous thing of dressing a dog up and putting hands, kind of creepy, kind of dangerous. And then for 10 years, people get used to seeing pictures like that. It's no longer dangerous or creepy. It's just maybe kind of, you know, it becomes like a Wegman. So it's becoming almost like a parody of what I was doing, possibly.
Wegman is trying to do different things now with his camera and with his dogs.
When you look at this, I mean, are you seeing a photo here?
I do. I see potential to make a beautiful work of art. To me, they look like dunes, let's say, or they look like rocks, or they look like cliffs.
A critic for the New York Times approved, comparing the dogs to a sleepy landscape, vast, silent, and furry.
Were you gratified by the way that was received?
Yes, I was. I was looking for a little acceptance in the art world because I had drifted so far away from it, the mainstream of art, that, and was sort of bragging about not caring about losing the art audience because I have the whole world now, or you know, the Western world anyway, plus Japan maybe, I don't know.
The truth is, Wegman's world revolves largely around the dogs. They've made him very rich and very famous and very happy.
There are places that I love because I walk with the dogs there, like in Maine, certain trails that come alive when they're out scouting ahead of me and coming back to check up on me. I can't walk out in the woods alone. I just can't do it. I'd probably trip and fall, because they're balancing me somehow.
And so far, Wegman's dogs have led him down the right path.
Come on, Batty, let's go.
Comb honey is $175.
You don't know this man, but you do.
The first time I saw the picture was one of my honey customers brought the Texas Monthly magazine that had my picture in it.
He is Ronald Fisher, the beekeeper in this classic photograph taken by Richard Avedon in 1981. It was part of a series on the American West.
So every now and then, every couple of years, it resurfaces, and it seems like it keeps on getting bigger and bigger. And
the picture has resurfaced in a retrospective this fall at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City.
I made up a fictional picture that a man covered with bees would be a good metaphor for the human condition. And who's going to pose in such a picture?
Yes, most of us would not, I think.
Most of us would not. And we advertised in beekeepers' journals.
And the ad basically went, wanted man or woman to be photographed with bees by world-famous photographer. Send a Polaroid picture of yourself.
One day, this picture in a jacket and tie of a bank, a man who worked in a bank. He said, my name is Ronald Fisher, and I'm a beekeeper. Well, he looked like the Buddha. I couldn't wait to call him up.
I was all set, ready to go. We had about 250,000 bees we could have done about anything with. And he says, okay, now take off your shirt. So I took off my shirt, and I had a T-shirt on underneath. And he says, T-shirt too. And I said, wait a minute, hold it. I said, what's going to happen here?
What happened, of course, is this famous photograph. It's real, but not really. Avedon says most of his photographs are fictions created for the camera. These are the faces of Richard Avedon. For nearly 60 years, he has focused his lens on faces of the familiar and on the hardly familiar at all.
And that's the first portrait I did. And it turns out to be much, much later, very meaningful in terms of my life view and the white backgrounds that I use later, and the little boy facing the camera bravely. And I used to call this my self-portrait. I didn't know that an entire career of portraiture would come out of that picture.
That entire career is now on exhibit. Avedon has donated most of these photographs to the Metropolitan Museum.
I grew up across the street. The apartment was small and crowded with a family, and I used to do my homework in the Egyptian wing. To end up here as an artist is miraculous. I'm so happy that I was lucky enough to find a life that I could get up every morning, and they can't take that away from me. In the old people's home, I'll be photographing old people.
Even from the beginning, with this portrait of his mother and these of his sister, Avedon had an eye for beauty and composition. Always concerned with image, the Avedon family even borrowed dogs for family photos. It seemed a necessary fiction, wrote Avedon.
I very often, for fashion photography, would clip pictures from the newspaper and then adapt it or develop it into a fashion photograph, a movement.
By the mid-1940s, Avedon's unconventional fashion photographs began gracing the pages of Harper's Bazaar and Vogue. His career even inspired a movie.
Oh, here I am with Fred Astaire working on a movie called Funny Face. I'm teaching him how to be a photographer.
Astaire plays Dick Avery, a fashion photographer modeled after Avedon.
Stop! Wonderful!
That's wonderful.
These days, as staff photographer for The New Yorker, Avedon poses actors and writers. His fascination with faces began while taking photo ID pictures for the Merchant Marine during World War II.
Human face is really a pretty amazing thing anyway, isn't
It's
it?
like fingerprints, thumbprints. I mean, no two are alike. And they're so expressive.
There are some that are just extraordinary in the leather-like quality of their faces, and every line seems to represent something that happened in their lives.
I think that's true, and that's very beautiful to me and interesting to me. I'm not drawn to young people in the way. I really like what's written in their face.
In a way, the more wrinkles, the better in that way.
Well, it's not wrinkles. It's, I mean, I don't see these people as wrinkled. I just see, I mean, the woman behind you. There's real force in her throat and her eyes, and so she's 40 and she's not 21.
It may be his fascination with faces that drew him to photograph American comedians. Avedon has an uncanny ability to reveal the man behind the mask. Charles Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Groucho Marx. You may remember actor Burt Lahr as the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz, but he was much more than that.
He played for once in his life a very serious play, Waiting for Godot, for Samuel Beckett, and it was breathtaking. I asked him to do the one moment where he says, "Don't touch me, don't speak to me, stay with me." And he did it beautifully, and it was everything I wanted to express about Beckett, myself, and the human condition in this one sentence, in this one moment.
That was him, panic-struck, inconsolable, longing for answers, unable to find any, and sort of resilient suffering.
Burt Lahr's son, John Lahr, a theater critic who has written a biography of his dad, says Avedon's photograph captures his father's essence.
He loved it. It was why it was in his bedroom. You know, it was the only picture of him in the house. No one has photographed the theatricals better than Avedon. He has a sense of the performing self. He understands that personality, means mask. And that's what it means. And we walk around with masks, and his gift is being able to penetrate that mask, to see the sort of essential thing that it hides.
Avedon's signature style, unforgiving close-ups against a stark white background, has been criticized as harsh. His portraits, mostly non-smiling, are sometimes flattering, sometimes not, but you almost always remember them.
What's really interesting about this show is these pictures were called brutal, pimple, warts and all. Everybody's dead. They're no longer seen like that. I don't know who the person was that did those pictures. I like them, and I'm told it was me. I don't even know who Richard Avedon is. No one who knows me calls me Richard. They call me Dick. And Avedon is a name that's taken on meaning that has nothing to do with who I now am.
And who is Avedon now?
May I bring on our greatest living photographer, Richard Avedon.
At the age of 79, a celebrity himself.
Would you be able to sign this one to me?
I walked down the stairs and two young girls say, "Are you Richard Avedon?" I said, "Yes." I'm not anonymous anymore. I was.
Well, it's hard to imagine an end of the 20th century without Avedon in terms of photography.
Maria Hamburg is curator of the exhibition.
We realize that he's a remarkable historian and that he's had his finger on the pulse all the way through, photographing not just the important people or even the anonymous people, the shape of whose lives reflects our own, with a kind of unerring instinct, the major chapters and episodes in our history.
The father of President Bush, when he was in the head of the CIA.
A group portrait of American military officials who ran the Vietnam War. Another of the Chicago 7 who protested it.
And this is my godson, Luke, an only young person in the show.
Avedon's more recent portraits are of family and friends.
Have you changed as you've gone along? Has there been an evolution of Richard Avedon as a photographer?
I hope so.
Where do you go from here?
Just go back to work.